This week, India's underbelly of urbanization was split wide open. Mumbai faced the brunt yet again with an entire wall of an upscale Wadala residential tower sliding, taking 11 cars down with it. Roads were flooded and 3 people lost their lives, while Mumbai reeled under the onslaught of monsoons. Delhiites, on the other hand, faced the prospect of breathing even dirtier air, slapped with a plan of 16,000 plus trees to be cut in the heart of the city for redevelopment of government residential colonies. What's going on? Where does the buck stop on the mess that unfolds almost every week in our cities? Well, let's tackle Delhi first. It's been less than 2 weeks when air quality of Delhi hit hazardous levels again, and there's mudslinging war on. Who's responsible for ordering felling of the trees? Joining me today are Gopal Shankar Narayan, Supreme Court lawyer who's fighting on behalf of the Delhi citizens to stop the felling of the trees, and Manit Rastogi, leading architect from Morphogenesis, whose work on sustainability is widely appreciated. Let me begin with getting some of the facts right with Gopal, because he's got the entire petition and will go back to fight on behalf of the citizens on July 4th. Gopal, all sorts of passing the buck between centre and the Delhi state government on who ordered the cutting of those trees. So can we have the facts right first?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that the owner of the project and the responsibility primarily for all these clearances is that of the central government. The Delhi government has a lesser but equally important responsibility as far as its role with reference to the Delhi Preservation of Trees Act is concerned. So both the central government and the Delhi government are responsible. There are a bunch of clearances that the central government has to give, more than the Delhi government has to give, but they are both responsible for this. Now, neither the Delhi government nor the central government has done anything concrete except a ham-handed odd-even scheme at one point. Neither of them have done anything really to reduce pollution, to treat it as a serious issue, because it doesn't translate politically for them. They don't care. It's just collateral damage. People will complain, people will crib about it for a while. There'll be a candlelight vigil for 2 weeks, and then everybody forgets about it. I think it's time governments begin to realize that they have to be afraid of the people.
Absolutely. It'll be forgotten. Well, that's what they keep hoping for. Gopal, what is the biggest flaw, according to you, in planning of these South Delhi colonies redevelopment, and could it have been done in a better way?
Most definitely, yes. And I think the biggest flaws, there are 2 of them. The first is in not understanding the fragile ecological system present in the National Capital Region and many parts of the country today. We have an unprecedented air pollution crisis. We have an unprecedented scarcity of water, as has been noted by the Niti Aayog. We're going to run out of groundwater in 2 years' time. We have an unprecedented issue with reference to the lack of green cover and how it's completely been eroded and gone. We have a severe issue in Delhi with reference to where the waste will go. Landfills are overflowing. There are cases in court about this, and people haven't applied their minds to these 4 aspects. Now, if you keep these 4 aspects in mind, and keep in mind the fact that natural resources are all held in public trust by the government. They don't own it. They don't own those trees. They don't own water. They don't own birds, animals. They don't own any of those. Those belong to humanity in this country. And the governments only discharge their role as trustees on our behalf. Now, they've failed that role completely. They believe that as governments, we will do exactly what we want. Slash and burn, we will slash and burn, and we're not going to keep any of these factors in mind. The second aspect is, while we keep talking about this environment and development debate, I think we lose sight of the fact that the engineers and architects that the central government has engaged for these redevelopment projects must be abysmal. They must be people with absolutely no idea of ensuring how to retain existing tree cover while coming up with new projects. You have a renowned architect on your program. I'm sure he will shed some light on this. But I find it mind-boggling that their simple idea is that let's just chop 20,000 trees, and we'll just put up 24 towers which cover 8 million square feet. I mean, what kind of mind-numbing approach is this? It shocks me that you are not considering retaining tree cover, and each tree is a huge ecosystem of its own. There are birds, there are smaller mammals, there's a lot of life around that tree. So when you bring that tree down, you see the consequences.
Well, Gopal, I'm going to, of course, go to Manit and ask him what kind of architects and planners are being employed by the central government. But coming back to the case itself, you know, what did the court mean when it gave the petitioner, Mr. Mishra, time till July 4 to amend his plea and challenge the tree authority's decision?
Now, the Delhi High Court said, look, now that NBCC appearing in court is handing over copies of these clearances, why don't you take a look at them? You might need to challenge those as well. And we are therefore amending the petition to challenge those tree clearances as well. For the sake of completeness, we need to ensure legally that all clearances which violate environmental norms are all challenged by us.
Okay. So can you just outline your key arguments for the next petition?
Well, our basis of our petition is twofold. First, that basic environment norms, especially in a fragile ecosystem like that which is being suffered by Delhi, cannot in any way be compromised for development projects. There has to be an understanding that some things are not capable of being compromised. The existence of water bodies, the existence of clean air, and the existence of trees and natural life, especially in a place where it's so vulnerable, cannot be compromised no matter what. The second is that the NBCC, when it's made its application for clearances, has misled the authorities by claiming A, that there is no litigation on any of these issues when there are multifarious litigations in the NGT, the Supreme Court and the High Court. And the second is that they claimed that the projects are not in an eco-sensitive area. Since 1987, the central government has notified Delhi as a vulnerable area under the Air Act. So it is definitely an eco-sensitive area. What is surprising is, despite the fact that these falsehoods were stated in their applications, the central government went ahead with a blind eye.
Wow. All right, Gopal, let me get Manit's reaction. So the first question, which I think Gopal and I want to ask you, is what sorts of architects and planners are being employed? I mean, honestly, can you defend this action of some of your own colleagues?
Absolutely not, Manisha, absolutely not. But you must understand the process by which they're hired. So when NBCC decides to do a project, they release an RFP, a request for proposal. The way the RFP is structured is that you have to, obviously it goes to the lowest bidder, but that aside, you have 15 days to prepare a design and show it to them.
15 days?
15 days.
My goodness.
So, so if you look at the perspective of the fact that these 7 projects, 500 acres, 70,000 cars, 12,500 apartments, 20,000 trees, it's good enough to be a city in itself.
And 33,000 crore rupees.
Well, not to mention the fact that these 500 acres at conservative land values about 1,50,000 crores. So, you know, you're talking of a scale here that is unprecedented, and the designers are given 15 days to prepare a design to show it to them for approval, and then it is awarded to the lowest bidder.
Okay. So therein lies the trouble.
So there lies the trouble, and it's the peanuts and monkeys game all over again. However, let me go to another point here. My other point here is that, did we discover that these colonies are crumbling today? No. The master plan of Delhi 10 years back outlined 22 colonies that, that will have to come up for redevelopment. Now, if you knew this information 10 years back, why could you not have begun the afforestation drive of plantation at that point in time? Now we have taken 7. We have 15 more to go, and then there'll be more. A city is a living organism.
All right. Yes.
It'll grow, it'll live, it'll die.
If the Union Cabinet could pass, you know, the plan to actually redevelop these several years ago, reforestation could have started again, afforestation. But even today, they don't have a plan. They're saying we'll do it, but where will they do it? I don't think it's clear. And, you know, I'm just looking at some of these tweets, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri. Very fabulous, Minister. But on this part, he's tweeted, for every tree cut, 10 more need to be planted. Green cover to be up 3 times after redevelopment. There are major issues with reforestation. I mean, reports find that only 30% of those trees even have a chance of survival.
Well, not these trees. So let me come to, so that is why I was arguing on the fact that you need to plant first, give it the tenure. However, if you're going to look at saying that, you know, you cut 1 tree and grow 10, where are you growing the 10? Now, these 10 are grown in 2 areas. One, if you grow it on site, now the requirement of parking is tremendous. Why? Because in some senses, the city has failed us with public transport. When you do this level of densification, the public transport system should have been in place in the first place not to require the cars. If you didn't require the cars, you didn't require the basements. Now, if you're going to go and plant trees on top of basement slabs, they're going to be stunted. They're going to be nowhere close to the ecological value of a tree that is growing on natural ground.
Absolutely.
It's like growing a tree on a planter.
We've run out of time, but I think you've again opened the Pandora box on complete lack of a long-term plan.
There is no long-term plan.
Those are the things which are coming back and harming us. But this time, I think the citizens are not going to let this happen, or at least we should really fight tooth and nail to make sure those trees are not cut. Thank you very much for joining us today.
One quick last point, I'll leave that with you. Credit to the government. There is a thrust on development, urbanization, smart cities. Superb credit to the people who are now standing up and saying we want the environment protected. The problem is the agencies in between. There is either a lack of vision, or there is greed, or there is corruption. We need to be able to find the bridge between intent and execution.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to thank Gopal and Mane. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen, on this very interesting debate. And of course, the conversations will continue. On the other side, we're going to put the spotlight on Mumbai's urban management and, of course, keep that wall collapse of Wadala in focus as well. What went wrong?